right, here we go. We're going to start on the book now. Chapter 1 of the book, Risk Management Methods and Tools. This is of the book. This is chapter 1, Risk Management and Prevention Through Design. Now, what I'm going to show you here is stuff that's right out of the book. And the best way to learn something is to have it presented to you in several different ways. So you're going to see it here. You're going to hear me talk about it, and hopefully you're going to read the book too, because this stuff is not going to be, it's not easy. It's some pretty difficult concepts here. And so you need to, and you've probably never had them before. And so it's important that you put some effort into this. But we're going to get going here on this. We're in chapter 1. And introduction. OSHA regulations provide a foundation for worker protection and greatly define the OSHA professionals' rules for decades. However, a transformation is underway within the profession. Once confined to tradition and oftentimes reactionary activities such as regulatory compliance, accident investigation and reporting, safety programs development, safety training, worksite inspections, and safety equipment selection, occupational safety and health professionals are beginning to engage in more proactive risk-based practices. Now, that doesn't mean we give up accident investigation, that type of thing too. That has to be done too. But then we're trying to get more proactive, which means doing something before it happens, as you know. Get that out of there. Okay, the sources of risk. Risk is described as the effect of uncertainty by the ISO 31000 risk management standard and adopted by ANSI, Z690. They do this back and forth. Sometimes they adopt a standard and give it their own name, which doesn't make any sense to me, but they aim to confuse. As the role of the occupational safety and health professional continues to evolve, it is important to recognize the different sources of risk and their relationship and effects upon an organization. The American Institute for Chartered Property Casualty Underwriters, known as the Institute, refers to these risk source categories as the risk quadrants. The risk quadrants are known as operational risk, hazard risk, financial risk, and strategic risk. And there's a little chart in your book about these. That's what's in your book. Operational risks and hazard risks are considered pure risks, those that can only result in loss or negative outcomes. And their primary risk that OSH professionals manage or control. In other words, you want to prevent something from happening that's going to be a negative outcome. Financial and strategic risks are speculative risks, which have the possibility of either a positive or negative outcome. Pure risks are typically insurable since they only involve the chance of a loss, while speculative risks are not. So figure 1.1 represents the 4 quadrants of risk. And think about for a minute when you could, in the hazards and operations, obviously you're going to make a profit from your operations, but for the risk standpoint of it, the only thing that happened is bad. And where in financial, it could be good. So makes a lot of sense. In the course materials for the associate in risk management designation, the Institute describes the risk quadrants as follows. Hazard risk, risks that are derived from property, liability, or personnel loss exposures and are generally insurable. Operational risk, risks that are derived from people or a failure in process, systems, or controls, including information technology related exposures. Both hazard and operational risks are closely aligned and interrelated and are often managed as such. Financial risk, risks derived from the effect of market forces or financial assets or liabilities, and include market risk, credit risk, liquidity risk, and price risk. Strategic risk, risks derived from trends in the economy and society, including change in economic, political, and competitive environments, as well as from demographic shifts. So I'll give you an idea what this 4 risks are. There's pretty good explanations here. Risk sources have the potential of falling into more than one category or quadrant and can also impact other types of risk within an organization, creating what they call a cascade effect. For instance, a product release or spill initially affects the operational aspect of the organization as a loss of product and maybe temporary business interruption risk. And now if the product's hazardous, the operational risk turns into a safety, health, and environmental risk, a hazard risk. And depending upon the scale and severity of the operational and hazard risks, the event may lead to significant financial loss, a financial risk, and possibly damage the organization's reputation, a strategic risk. So something could happen that fits in all 4 of these categories. Enterprise risk management, ERM, is a strategic business discipline that supports the achievement of an organization's objectives by addressing the full spectrum of its risks and managing the combined impact of those risks as an interrelated risk portfolio. Organizations seek to manage risk exposures across all parts of their business so that at any given time, they incur just enough of the right kinds of risk, no more, no less, to effectively pursue strategic goals. The OSH professional is trained to look at hazards and risks associated with operational activities that produce negative consequences. Businesses must balance the negative risk as well as the opportunity and positive risk they face. So what they're kind of saying here is, if you have, let's say you have a machine that makes a product, right? Well, or you have drivers, anything that you're going to have risk. So in this machine, it has a lot of moving parts and that type of thing. You're going to have a lot of risks in that if people get hurt on it. And so you have to control those risks as good as well as you can. You're not going to eliminate them unless you eliminate the machine. And that can't happen if you're going to make a product, of course. So you're going to have risks, but you can control them to a degree. With drivers, you have anytime you're driving, even in your personal vehicle, that's a risk. But how do you control it? Well, you drive sober to begin with, and then you follow, you keep your eyes open and do all the right things. It's the defensive driving type of thing that you should do. So there's risks all the time, and we deal with them all the time too, without even realizing it sometimes. So interdependencies in synergistic effects, ERM risks are interdependent. Key interdependencies exist between hazard risks, operational risk, financial risk, and strategic risk. Each of these major interdependent categories is comprised of sub-risk categories. In addition, the synergistic effect of risk exposure could pose greater risks than the sum of individual hazards and risks. The regulatory fines related to OSHA risks may be considered acceptable from a financial perspective, but may not be acceptable from an ERM perspective due to strategic risk and potential reputational damage. Such risks may be misunderstood or underestimated. For instance, OSH risk may lead to financial losses, operational interruptions, and regulatory issues if the function is not properly integrated into ERM process. Improperly managed OSH risks may lead to operations shut down due to incident investigations, resulting in financial losses, failure to fulfill orders, insurance premium increase, and reputational damage. Unfortunately, considerable number of organizations use different systems and methodologies to manage different risks. OSH functions may utilize risk assessment and risk management methodologies that are not familiar to business managers. OSH managers may not be fully familiar with business risk assessment and risk management practices and tools, hence the need for integration. In other words, we're going to put this all together, everybody. Benefits of OSH function and ERM integration. ERM requires an integrated risk organization. While many companies now have a chief risk officer, they are often aligned to financial or internal audit functions far removed from operational and strategic risk domains where OSH professionals feel comfortable. This progression from OSH risk to operational, financial, business, and strategic risk offers the occupational and safety health professionals the opportunity to integrate occupational safety and health risk management into the enterprise risk management process. So the enterprise risk management, the whole enterprise, talking about now, risk management. So it's instead of just having risk management being for financial, or it's going to be for everything. Risk management and the OSH professional. In an effort to better prepare for the changes occurring in the profession, this manual, we're talking about the textbook, provides guidance for selecting, modifying, and combining risk management methods and tools. It is largely shaped by significant events in recent years that give greater prominence to risk assessment and the risk management process. And you can review Chapter 1 for more details about this. Manual contents for the OSH risk professional. This manual is intended to provide instructive guidance for selecting, modifying, and applying fundamental risk management tools and prevention through design concepts. It's divided into 3 parts. Part 1, the risk management methods and tools, contain instructional steps for common risk management tools used by a safety professional. And that's going to be the first 8 chapters of the book in these next 8 modules. Part two, strategies for selecting, modifying, and combining risk management methods. Provide strategies used to select, customize, optimize, and combine methods to provide the risk-based information needed by the safety professional. And part three, practical examples and case studies of risk management methods and tools from the field are used to help demonstrate the use of tools. We're going to cover all those too in this course. So you're going to see a lot of this here, right? This chapter on the sources of risk. Note, for the purposes of this manual, the authors use ISO 31000 and ISO 31000, referring to ISO 31000, ANSI, NISSC, etc. In other words, they're just going to use 31000. So this is your little book flow chart, if you want to call it here, for risk management. We're going to look at, I got to put my glasses on to see this stuff. So on the left-hand side, that vertical column says communication and consultation. And you can see that every one of these things that's an ongoing thing, because that's going through with every step of the way. And monitoring and review is same thing. Those are every step of the way. And what we're going to talk about, we're going to know which one of these. Establishing the context, that sets the rules, kind of. Risk assessment, which means risk identification, risk analysis, risk evaluation, and risk treatment. And then we're going to talk about, there's a chapter on each one of those. So that's what that every time you see this ladder looking thing, that's what they're talking about here. So this is what we're going to do here in this course. Chapter 1, risk management and performance through design. Chapter 2, communications. Chapter 3, establishing the context. Chapter 4, risk identification. Chapter 5, risk analysis. Then risk evaluation, risk treatment, monitoring, and review. So that's what we're going to cover, each one of these things in this chapter, so you'll have a better understanding of this as we go. Now, within each process step, select tools and methods commonly used by OSH risk professionals are presented and discussed, as shown in figure 1.3. Many other methods are available, and we're going to talk about some methods. And some methods we're going to mention. So I'm not going to read these off to you. You can look in the book and take a look at these and see what they are. You can see the main headings are all the chapter headings pretty much. Risk management principles, framework, and process. Internal and external factors that create uncertainty for organizations can also prevent the achievement of certain business objectives. This effect of uncertainty to an organization's objective is referred to as risk. I'm going to turn my phone off here. That's what I'm doing. Without a clear picture of the risks facing an organization, it is difficult to make informed decisions on objectives and the degree of risk the organization is willing to assume in pursuit of those objectives. It is vital that organizations incorporate and integrate a process of managing operational risk within the overall management system. Such systems should encompass strategies for risk assessment and management planning, risk-based decision-making, establishing accountabilities, managing and measuring activities, reporting and recording, and risk communication with stakeholders. Risk management principles, framework, and process. And this is another little thing here that incorporates. Now they have some extra things, and we're going to go through these things too. So bear with me. You're going to see these, but these are in your book too. And I advise you look at them in your book. Principles, relationship that exists between the principles, framework, and process of risk management are illustrated in figure 1-3. So they have principles, framework, and process. The principles, clause 3, and I think that's come from the ISO standard, are the foundation on which the framework and process are built as described in the ISO standard. Both the framework and process are constructed in a plan, do, check, act model for continual improvement, one of the principles cited in clause 3. Value creation, these are the principles that are in that chart there. Value creation and protection. Value is created and protected through an organization's ability to innovate, continually improve performance, and achieve objectives. And by the way, you mentioned that plan, do, check, act. We're going to cover that in the next module. Integration of risk management into all activities and decision-making requires a coordinated effort from stakeholders in the organization to ensure risk is considered in decisions and actions at all levels. The structured systematic approach to managing risk helps ensure a more efficient, consistent, reliable, and repeatable process, which is vital. Customize, the ability to modify and customize the framework and process elements to suit an organization, its culture and structure, and its internal and external factors is important to the effectiveness of risk management. Inclusiveness of stakeholders in risk management ensures the ownership and allows for better risk-informed decisions to be made. Stakeholders are basically anybody that has a dog in that hunt. They're stakeholders. So that varies from different things, but stakeholders are generally the people that, like I said, that they're affected by it. So your employees frequently in safety, there are their stakeholders. Best available information. Incorporating the best available information into the process of managing risk enables decision makers to better anticipate and take proper action. Human and cultural factors, human behavior, as well as the organization's values, perceptions, beliefs, attitudes, intentions, and capabilities influence risk management at all levels. Continual improvement. Management of risk should facilitate continual improvement through organizational performance, continued learning, and experience. And that's the principle. The framework, a risk management framework based on the aforementioned principles exists to provide organizational structure for leadership and commitment, process design, implementation, and monitoring, evaluation, and continual improvement of the risk management process. It assists an organization in the integration of risk management into all activities, decisions, and actions. Prevention through design. In this manual, the concept of prevention through design, PTD, is woven into the concepts, elements, and tools of the risk management process. I think I erred when I called it performance through design. Prevention through design is the right answer on that, so that's my mistake. The authors believe that it's vitally important to consider managing risk from the beginning stages of design throughout the system's lifespan to decommission and disposal. This is a relatively new concept that OSH risk professions and some organizations are beginning to explore and champion. So this is in your book. This is just, I guess if you call it a Venn diagram or not, but this ISO 31000 risk management of all types, and then ANSI Z590.3 is included in that. So to put in the proper context, the ANSI Z590 prevention through design standard is written to address occupational safety and health risks of the entire life cycle of a system. So not just for, while it's running, the entire life cycle. The more, and including as first you bring it into your company, and then as you get rid of it, decommission it, dispose of it. So this more pinpointed focus aligns with OSH risk professionals' rules in assessing and managing workplace exposure. So what they're trying to tell you in this, well, I'll finish this. The ISO 31000 standards, on the other hand, are written from a much broader perspective and designed to address all types of risk, including those that have negative and or positive consequences, with the ultimate purpose of reducing uncertainty and enabling an organization to achieve its objectives. So that's the overall thing. And then the part that has to do most with safety professionals is in that smaller circle in there. Concepts and application of prevention through design. ANSI Z590.3 is the first standard to address risk assessment in the design and redesign phase. It provides a framework for implement risk assessment concepts within the various phases of a system's lifespan, including the conception, design, redesign, construction, manufacture, use, maintenance, decommission, and disposal. And it defines prevention through design as follows. This is their definition: prevention through design, addressing occupational safety and health needs in the design and redesign process to prevent or minimize the work-related hazards and risks associated with construction, manufacture, use, maintenance, retrofitting, and disposal of facilities, processes, materials, and equipment. So you can see that covers everything just about. So this is the source of risk. Now this is you get a little glimpse of this. This might look a little bit familiar to you, especially that on that bar, most preferred, least preferred. This is their hierarchy of controls that they're bringing up here in this. As you can see, it starts with something called risk avoidance. Prevent entry of hazards in the workplace by selecting and incorporating appropriate technology and work methods criteria during the design process. It makes a little bit of sense because what they're doing, they're including this in, remember, from womb to tomb here, from cradle to grave. So they're trying to do it. So if you're a safety professional, you're usually not maybe getting that far, that much concerned about stuff that's not even been done yet or just in the design stage. And then they go to eliminate workplace and work methods risks that have been discovered, substitution, reduce risks by substituting less hazardous methods or materials, engineering controls, incorporate engineering control safety devices. I don't like their description, engineering controls, incorporate engineering controls. How about engineering controls? It's isolate people from the hazard. Warning, provide warning systems. Okay, they're adding warning and risk avoidance into this. Administrative controls, apply administrative controls. I hate you when you use that to find out. Administrative controls do what? They change the way people work. Personal protective equipment, provide personal equipment. Okay. So the stated goals are to achieve acceptable risk levels, prevent or reduce risks that produce injuries and illness, and reduce the need for retrofitting to address hazards and risks not addressed in the design or redesign phases. The PTD standard is based on the risk reduction hierarchy of controls concept shown in figure 1.6. Now, it makes a little bit of sense if the safety department is involved in the design of a piece of equipment. Let's say you have a large piece of equipment. I mean, it's huge. It's, there's a lot of equipment out there like that, believe me. It may be 15 feet, 20 feet high and 200 feet long. And and you have to get to the top of it. Well, I've seen this too often. So what happens is people have to get to the top of it. So what's the best way to do it? Is incorporate something right into that piece of equipment, right? Like maybe a permanent ladder with a cage mount, safe ladder so you can get up there and work on it. But one of the first things, and that's why this would help a safety person. One of the first things that the purchasing people want to do, well, they want to make it cheaper. They want to look good. They want to make the price to be lower. So they don't care about that because that's not their problem. Now that ladder's not going to be their problem. It's going to be your problem. And it's going to be the problem that, the person lying on the ground there because they fell off the things or climbing up on it. So to have somebody involved and say, no, wait a minute, what do we have to do this? Do we have to get up there on this? Well, yeah, we get up there. There's something up there we got to change every so often. There's motors up there that break down, whatever. So that's why you need to be honest. So if we're going to get up there, why don't we put that into the machine, how we get up there? Whether it's stairs, steps, ladders, it depends. But you're there for that. And that's really important because believe me, I know purchasing people will do. They will. And that at one of the conferences we had for the poultry safety thing every year, we have a meeting between all the safety people in one room to just kick it off. And to a person there, they all said the same thing. Well, if a machine comes with safety things, first thing that the purchasing people do try to get rid of it because they want to make it cheaper because it makes them look better. So without somebody, that's why you have this enterprise risk management. If nobody from risk management is involved in this purchasing decision, guess what? Nobody's going to look at this safety thing part of it. They're going to get their way, going to get a piece of equipment in. Now you're going to have a big problem because people are going to have to get up on top of it, and there's no safe way to do it. So that's one of the fundamental things that I've seen that really could be a big improvement in enterprise risk management. And this is the hierarchy controls that I particularly like. It's a little simpler, and the elimination, physically remove the hazard, substitution, replace the hazard, engineering controls, isolate people from the hazard, administrative controls, change the way people work, and PPE, protect the worker with personal protective equipment. That's the one we're going to use in this course. Now, they might bring some up once in these other ones. I don't think they did, but that's the one we're going to use in this course. I think this is an ANSI one, and I like it because it's simple. So, prevention through design, hazard analysis, risk assessment process. Like ANSI, they address the same ones, but there's some important distinctions between these two things: the ANSI risk management and the 690, and ANSI Z690 and ANSI Z590. The ANSI Z690 standard addresses the management of all types of risk, including those with positive results as well as those with negative results, in a much broader sense, with the purpose of reducing uncertainty and achieving an organization's objective. So ANSI Z590.3 is focused on the assessment and control of hazard-derived risks through design and the use of hierarchical controls within the life cycle of the system to achieve acceptable risk. So it's more focused. Z593 is more focused. Now, this is the hazard analysis and risk assessment procedure, and you can see on the left-hand side is that first thing, and I am not going to read this to you. You can look at it in a book, and you can look at it, and you can see how these things interact. It's figure 1.7 in your book. Pretty easy to find. Hazard analysis and risk techniques in PTD. Each organization should select and apply risk assessment methods suitable to its needs and provide training in those methods to stakeholders involved in the process. The Z590.3 standard identifies 8 common techniques for hazard analysis and risk assessment, and it's addendum G. Those methods are preliminary hazard analysis. Now, later on, you're going to see PHA as a process hazard analysis when we talk about process safety management. What if analysis, checklist analysis, what if checklist analysis, hazard and operability analysis, failure mode and effects analysis, fault tree analysis, and management oversight and tree risk. And they all have little acronyms on them. The comparison of listed hazard analyses and risk assessment methods in ISO 31010, ANSI Z59, Z590, and ANSI Z10 standards is shown on table 1.1, pages 26 and 27. You really can't read them very well on this, and I'm not going to try. These are in your book near the end of the chapter. Of all the hazard analysis and risk assessment methods listed in the 31 lines of this chart, only one is found in all 3 columns, and that is checklists. Isn't that amazing that they have all these things and only one of them can they all agree on? So I think there's still a lot of disagreement in the field here on this. So summary, an organization becomes more risk-centric. OSH risk professionals will be expected to have sufficient skills in selecting and applying occupational risk management tools. They will be expected to understand and apply the hierarchy controls concept to achieve an acceptable risk level. Risk elimination and reduction will be incorporated into designs and throughout a system's lifespan. Knowledge and skill in these concepts, as well as a firm understanding of occupational risk management systems, such as ISO 45001 and ANSI Z10, will be required by organizations. The concepts, tools, and case studies in this manual are designed to help prepare the OSH risk professional for these changing expectations and developing trends. And these are just sources in here, and I'm going to leave them in there just to keep things legal. And that's the end of the first chapter. Again, read it, because this isn't 100%. This is a lot of the chapter, but it's not all of it. So read the chapter. Certainly hope you look at this video and listen to what I say, and look at the slides too. And by doing those 3 things, I think you'll gain a better grasp of this chapter, because all this stuff is pretty new and it's pretty interesting. So in the meantime, be safe. Okay, why isn't it ending? There you go.